name is Joseph Hallett. I go by Mr. H. I am the transition mentor at Alice Ott. My job is to equip our 8th graders and prepare them for high school.
What does equity mean to you?
To me, equity means that there's no exclusion. Everyone is involved. Everyone has an opportunity. Everyone has a chance to have a voice, to be heard and to be understood.
That's awesome. How do you see that in your work here at Alice Ott?
Every day is an opportunity to make change. I believe that working in David Douglas School District, I have an opportunity and a platform to teach kids who come from the same struggle that I come from, that there is an opportunity to become greater or better than sometimes what you see around yourself.
What does a race-affirming environment look like to you?
To me, a race-affirming environment is an environment that does not limit education and understanding. A race-affirming environment acknowledges cultures, races, and ethnicities. I believe that we live in a world that has hindered that a little bit as far as true education and understanding of being an African American in America. I believe an environment is transparent to individuals' feelings, and I believe transparency can sometimes be uncomfortable, but more growth comes in uncomfortable situations than comfortable situations.
And as an African American, can you tell us a little bit about what that's like with your relationships with students, what that experience is like?
Well, I often have to pinch myself on a daily basis because, like most of our children, I didn't grow up seeing anything that looked like me. And so I never had a vision that I could be in this type of setting because of the representation that I saw growing up. I was often told that as an African American that I would be limited in what I can do in this world. I believe that the challenges that I've faced through racism in this world has allowed me to be able to speak life into our students, set standards greater than what they see, and show them that regardless of your ethnic background, you have a chance to do what you want to do as long as you apply yourself. And every day I am a living example.
How often do you think about what colleagues and students of different races experience?
I think about it often because it is something that I think about for myself, that I think about it often for our students. I believe that we are making strides, but I also feel like we have a long way to go. As transparent as I can be, I don't believe that everyone is on the same page for that growth, but that doesn't mean that they can't get there. I do understand that in order to accomplish these hurdles, sacrifices are required. I take a lot of statements and phrases from Dr. King. African Americans once were bootless, and nowadays we have boots. Still trying to get to some laces, but we at least have boots.
When you talk about, we have a long way to go, as you think about the future of Alice Ott and the students at Alice Ott, what are a few of the things that you, the most pressing things that you hope for and would like to see happen sooner for students?
Well, it'd be nice if we taught racism in its accuracy and in its entirety. My grandmother, my mother, myself were never educated accurately on African American history. And a lot of us tend to connect our history to slavery first, but there's a reality that we existed a lot longer than slavery. I think there has been a huge hindrance in giving out that information because sometimes when you have to tell a story, someone will look a certain way. And I feel like our country has worked very hard to avoid making the Caucasian culture look evil by hiding information and withholding information. And I think because we've never taught history, we've never taught history of racism in its accuracy, I think that's why the N-word has still prevailed, because we've never given out the information the way we should in appropriate education. And I think if we leverage the game by actually teaching it in its entirety, that we will have a stronger chance at moving toward eliminating racism and changing the different systemic racism pieces that we face every day. I'll often allude to, I have to pinch myself because I never believed that I could have a chance to be in this position. I never believed that I had a chance to be greater than what I saw outside of that neighborhood that I grew up in. I'm a byproduct of Jim Crow. I'm a byproduct of every level of racism. And I watched my uncles go through it, from high school to prison pipeline, from the crack era. In my neighborhood, we didn't believe we would make it past 18. And I'm living proof that if you make enough sacrifices in life and you're willing to grow in uncomfortable spaces, that you can leverage yourself with opportunity. And I didn't have a father growing up, and I had probably the worst role models in my neighborhood possible. And I had a choice. I either follow what I see or I separate myself from the pack. And it was people like Dr. King and Malcolm X and Huey P. Newton that were willing to make sacrifices that would later cost them their life for me to see where I am today. And because I was a witness of that, I am compelled to make the same choices and decisions. And I think I'm reaching a point to where I don't have any fear of speaking my truth. I don't have any fear of being considered the angry black man, because I speak from my point of view, from where I am educated about my culture, my heritage, and where we come from.
How well does your school help staff speak out against racism?
It's a living dream for me. I never imagined that I would have a platform that would allow me to speak out against injustice toward African Americans. And, I was listening to one of Dr. King's speeches or interviews, and the gentleman asked him, why have other ethnicities been able to come into America through immigration and find success, but yet the Negro still struggles with it? And his quick response was that we are one of the few ethnic races that came into America involuntarily and in chains and forced into enslavement for better than 260 years. And a lot of the Jim Crow laws and systemic oppressionable items still have us in a headlock today. But knowing that David Douglas School District has given me a platform to create change for not just myself, but for those that look like me, it's a living dream.
I'm going a little off script here, but I'm wondering if you would feel okay talking a little bit about the school to prison pipeline. You mentioned that, and what are things you see that we are doing and could be doing even now for students, for our community and our schools, to interrupt that?
Addressing mental health is probably at the top of the list, because I believe that the powers that be were willing to invest all the time to create the problems that we have in America, but we don't have half the patience to undo it. People like myself and yourself in the positions that we're in, we're being leveraged to create change. And, my mom often said, we can talk about what all the problems are, but talking about the problems don't necessarily create change. And change comes from action. What you do every day, how you carry yourself every day, what you represent, when you leave your home. My mom often said that when you leave my house, your actions are a representation of what I've been giving you.
And so when you think of students here at Alice Ott and the school to prison pipeline, and then your role and your philosophy around that, what can you name a few things that you would identify? Mental health was one. and a few other things that you think might be the priority or the thing that's most pressing for us as staff, as people working with students, and really for our white colleagues who are working with students and still sort of figuring out what it means to learn about and respect and understand students of color in our community. Do you have any things that you think would be helpful?
Well, it starts with being educated. Education leads to understanding. And because our school systems have never equipped the appropriate education and understanding of racism, even our teachers are at a disadvantage to some degree, because if we weren't being educated, they weren't being educated. So now we have hit a juncture, or what we would call a roadblock, of individuals who lack information and to some degree lack empathy of understanding. Because if you haven't worn the shoes, sometimes it's hard to truly understand where an individual comes from. I didn't see anybody that looked like me in a lot of areas. And I remember in 2009, when I was getting started in education, I took a job at Alberta Ryder Elementary School. And they did a thing called Courageous Conversations About Race. And we met at a building, and the gentlemen who were teaching, they lined us up all side by side, and then they started asking questions that depicted to what we saw on a day-to-day about things that were related to us. Now, I'm not naive, and I am not dismissive of what I don't know or what I do know about racism, and that day wasn't the first day for me to learn or understand about what I knew. But as they asked questions, and all of my white colleagues proceeded to move forward, and I didn't move, the reality of my pain started to set in, that the disadvantages and advantages that I didn't have were being heavily reminded to me. And I think it was at that moment that I realized the challenge in my life was the challenge for change, and to lead myself into a direction where I will be in a position to where I can be a part of the change, and not just by what I said, but by my actions and how I carried myself.
Is there anything else that you haven't said yet that you'd like to say?
I'm just grateful. Every day I have to pinch myself and remind myself that at one point in time, this opportunity wasn't there for people who look like me. And it is now. And I'm 42, I'll be 43 this year. And as I think about what accomplishments are left for me in my life, I'm reminded that Dr. King and Malcolm X were killed and assassinated when they were 39 years old. And that tells me that they had reached a point in their life where they were stable enough to really give charge to the change that needed to happen in this world. And me going into my 43rd year in existence is a reminder that I am evolving into what my life was destined to be. We make decisions, but our life has destiny. And some of us live our entire life and never realize why we're here and what we're supposed to do. And by the blessings of my higher power, I know why I'm here. And I feel gratefully blessed to be in this position to create change for all students, but even for more of the students that look like me that will go through the similar struggles and the similar ups and downs that I've seen in my existence on earth. And having a chance to create that kind of change through love is just beyond comprehension, because I never ever believed that this would be an opportunity for me. And me being here is a chance for these kids to see me and create belief inside of them that they can be greater or better than what they see around them sometimes on a day-to-day basis, because often who we are and what we are is depicted by the people who are in our lives. From our grandmothers to our grandfathers to our parents to our uncles, our aunties, cousins, sisters, brothers. Those are the people who help us become who we are, good, bad, or indifferent.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing honestly and authentically your truth, who you are. Thank you for the work you're doing here. It's an honor to hear from you today, truly. And just appreciate the work you're doing.
My name is Joseph Hallett, and I believe in equity as much as I am equity.